Hello and welcome to another episode of 2 Minutes with Tim here on Heavenward Thinking. Today we're continuing in 1 John chapter 5. We're going to be looking at verses 16 to 18, so I'll read it and we'll get right into this week's challenge. If you see any brother or sister commit a sin that does not lead to death, you should pray and God will give them life. I refer to those whose sin does not lead to death. There is a sin that leads to death. I am not saying that you should pray about that. All wrongdoing is sin, and there is sin that does not lead to death. We know that anyone born of God does not continue to sin. The one who was born of God keeps them safe, and the evil one cannot harm them. As we look at these verses 16 and 17 are challenging verses. There's tons and tons of different opinions, thought processes. Theologians will argue on these verses all day long. The important thing here, I think, to look at for us is verse 18 this week. As we've been going throughout the book of 1 John, we've been seeing that we are supposed to live differently. As Christians, we're supposed to be the light. We're supposed to love other people. We're supposed to keep God's commands, to walk differently than those who are walking in the darkness of this world. And we see here in verse 18 a reminder of that. Again, anyone born of God does not continue to sin. The one who is born of God keeps them safe, and the evil one cannot harm them. Again, as Christians, we are supposed to be progressing in our faith. So we are supposed to be leaving behind the sin or our former way of life. We can't be claiming to be a Christian and then walking in darkness. We've seen that all throughout the book of 1 John, that it is a temptation that we fall into, but we have to reject that temptation. We have to overcome it by actually following the commands of God. We need to not be getting caught up in the same sin over and over and over. We need to move beyond that. We need to repent of it, take care of it, and not do it. That's what this section really is showing us, that sin is a problem. We need to take care of that problem, and we need to live holy, godly lives. Now, these verses aren't saying that we're going to never ever sin again and we're going to just be perfect people. We know that on this side of heaven that's not going to happen, but we need to be progressing and becoming more and more like Jesus and less like our sinful nature. And so when we look at these verses, it's a great challenge, a great reminder for us to keep our focus on Jesus, to know his commands, to keep his commands, and then to reject temptation, reject the traps, the sin in our lives that so often entangle us. Reject those and focus on Jesus. That's my challenge for you this week, and I hope that you'll join us again next time for another episode of 2 Minutes with Tim here on another episode of Heavenward Thinking.